What is going on, Bills Mafia, Built in Buffalo fam? Welcome into another episode of Triple Covered Podcast, brought to you by Monster Energy and Buffalo Billia Sports and more. Glad to have you. Obviously, as you can see, no Lance today, no Lance this week, but he will be back next week. Unfortunately, could not make it this time. We're gonna have a great show for you guys tonight. Scott, how you doing?
Doing great. We got playoff football to talk about. Nothing better than playoff football. We had an awesome first game of kind of the 5-day playoff weekend. Penn State lost a heartbreaker to Notre Dame. And then we got Ohio State, Texas tonight, which should be a ton of fun. And then it's not super wild card weekend anymore. It's just wild card weekend. But that starts off tomorrow. So we're going to have an awesome weekend of football and excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good week, good weekend, and hopefully it's a good Sunday for Bills fans and all of Buffalo. It should be a great game there at 1 o'clock. I think a lot of people were glad about the 1 o'clock game. Before we get into quick thoughts, I guess I just want to ask you about that. Were you kind of upset that it was 1 o'clock, or were you happy it was 1, or kind of just indifferent about the time and day of the game?
Well, 1 o'clock, a little tough because, we're getting there early to tailgate. You got to wake up a lot earlier now. So selfishly, I wouldn't have hated a 4 o'clock game, but I think 1 o'clock is good. Kind of everything even though I was going to say normal routine, but the Bills don't have a whole lot of 1 o'clock games anymore. So you can't even really say it's their normal Sunday routine. But as a fan, we should be out of the game in time to watch most of the 4 o'clock game and then all of the night games. So from a football watching perspective, it's a good thing. But I don't know, to me, the time of the game doesn't matter. Any team, any time, any place, anywhere, whatever the saying goes. If the Bills play, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be watching. I don't really care.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's playoff football. It's Buffalo Bills football. Yeah, I will say I was kind of glad it was 1 o'clock. I would say I either wanted 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock. I didn't really want a night game. I didn't want a Saturday game. I definitely did not want a Monday game. But yeah, I think a lot of fans are still pretty happy. Let us know what you guys think. If you guys are happy it's 1 o'clock, if you wish it was a different time, if you wish it was a different day, let us know. But let's just get right into it. We got some quick thoughts here for you. Obviously, everybody's been talking about it all on Twitter and on social media. It's been the big topic of conversation today is the All-Pro teams. They came out. Josh Allen, the only Buffalo Bill to be on a team. He did get All-Pro second team. Say what you want about it. Say what you want about how it affects MVP. We won't know for a couple more weeks how it affected MVP. But either way, he did get second team All-Pro. No one else, though. So what are your thoughts on that? I know Christian Benford, no Deion Dawkins, Ron Johnson, Reed Ferguson. Those are the other guys who got votes. But what do you think about just Josh Allen getting second team?
I'm kind of surprised, but at this point, the Bills get left off of these lists every year. So we are always, it's the teams, all the teams in the playoffs, we have the least amount of Pro Bowlers and the least amount of All-Pros. I think it's been the same thing for the past few years. I'm a little surprised Deion Dawkins didn't make it. He had a really good season. I thought he deserved it. He's kind of been flirting with it the past few years. I thought this was the year he was going to push over the edge. But, some of the other guys, Christian Benford, a little surprised about him too. But, he is just a 6th-round pick from Villanova who doesn't talk. So not a whole lot of people outside of Buffalo probably watch much of his film, really know what they have going on. So it's impressive that this team just continues to win the AFC East, continues to make noise year after year, and they don't have the All-Pros of the other team. I think the Ravens have 6. There's only 44 guys or 50 guys, special teams, so that's impressive. And the people who say Sean McDermott isn't a good coach, I think this just shows that he is, because something's putting all these wins together. And if we don't have good players, which obviously we do, but if we don't have top players, we're winning games for some reason. That seems to be Josh Allen and the coaching staff.
Yeah, it's not the best when it comes to if you don't really love Sean McDermott, and I know a lot of people are tweeting that out as well. I know Dave, I believe, tweeted something saying this is a Sean McDermott tweet here about how this team continues to succeed without the All-Pros, without the Pro Bowlers, without the MVPs or anything like that. So really says something about this coaching staff to continue to win at this rate. But yeah, I mean, I was a little bit shocked about Benford and Dawkins. Dawkins, I thought for sure would at least get second team, but didn't end up getting it. Christian Benford, again, like you said, I think it's one because he is younger. He is up and coming. I know not a bigger name, not from a big school, not a high draft pick, like you said. So I do see, I guess, it is turning a little bit into, you have to have a name. And Christian Benford hasn't really made a name for himself when it comes to being a personality, NFL personality, especially compared to some of the other guys. But Teron Johnson, we saw him get it last year. This year, he definitely could have deserved it, but it's one of those years he did end up battling some injuries and having kind of a slower start to the year. So for him, I think for Teron Johnson, it wasn't really too much of a shock for me. Cook was the other one I want to ask you about before we go into the next question here. Are you shocked Cook didn't get in or didn't get all first or second team?
No, just it's nothing to do with him, but just who do you take off, Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley? Like the two guys that Saquon went for 2K, Derrick Henry came really close. Like I know, Cook had. I would maybe more of an argument for Jahmyr Gibbs over James Cook just because of the touchdowns and the all-purpose yards. But yeah, like who do you take off, Saquon or Derrick Henry? And neither really.
Do you think that this could warrant? Because wide receiver obviously has two slots on both teams. Do you think running back they could ever get to that point of putting two running backs on first team and second team? Obviously, you normally have at least two receivers on the field usually in the NFL. You don't usually have more than one on the or running back on the field. But what do you think about that aspect?
I don't think so because at that point it just kind of waters down the award. Like all pro, at least for me, is the accolade that I really look at. So if you keep adding numbers to it, then you're really not on like the first. Are you really first team all pro if you're one of two guys at the same position where they're generally, like you said, isn't two of them on the field? So I'm okay with this one being exclusive because it's like if you're all pro, like that means something. So no, I don't think they should mess with it.
Yeah, let us know who you guys think got snubbed. Even if it isn't a bill, let us know who you guys think got snubbed for all pro there. I did see John here said not impressed. He should have been first team for Josh, and there should have been more. I think a lot of Bills fans are kind of feeling that as well. We'll see though about the MVP down the road. We're not going to get into the MVP right now. But next up on the docket, you talked about it being a great weekend for football. It is wild card weekend. There's going to be some great games. So get rid of the Bills game. Pretend the Bills game didn't exist. Which game to you is the most intriguing and the one that you're going to be watching the closest?
I would say the Packers-Eagles. Jalen Hurts hasn't played in 2.5 weeks. Just got back into practice this week. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are banged up. I know they're going to play. Then on the other side, Jordan Love also banged up, hurt his elbow. They played a really good game in week 1 down in Brazil. So really excited to see that one. And it'll be a fun one, because you and I are going to the game. We can head to the bar after. Well, you can just walk to your house, but I can't. So I'll head to the bar, wait for the traffic, and then hang out there and get to watch that one. So I think that'll be a good one.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the NFC as well. I'm going to go Rams-Vikings. I just think, one, you're at a neutral-ish location. I know it's closer to LA, but now with what's happening in California there, you have to move the game. But it's also just you have a team that has people or players that have won a Super Bowl winning head coach. But then you have a Vikings team that just has this feeling around them, right, that was so close to getting that 1 seed. Now they're the 5 seed. They don't get to host a playoff game. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, but I do think it's going to be a phenomenal game there. And those are two teams that we were just talking about it a little bit before the show, but those are two teams for me that I think could end up making a run in the NFC. More so maybe the Vikings, just due to, you've seen their record, you've seen what they were able to do. Rams, just because they've had it in the past, they've been able to go far. They have a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They have a lot of weapons on offense there. But yeah, that's going to be the game that I'm most intrigued about, and that's the one that I think could be the closest one of the weekend. I think a lot of these games will be close, but I do think this one could be the closest. And Nathaniel here, I just was pulling up as well.
At the same time.
Yep. Vikings are frauds. Rams by 10+ there, which, hey, look, I could see this game going a million different ways. So I'm not gonna say that that's the hottest take I think I've seen thrown out there for wild card weekend. What do you think about that?
Definitely possible. If Sam Darnold plays the way he did on Sunday, it might be Rams by more than 10. So I think that'll be a good one. I think that's a good Monday night game too, with the only game that day. So we'll see. I don't know if Rams win by 10, but the Rams definitely got a shot.
Yeah. Next up on the outline here we got is how much pressure is this Bills team to go far in the playoffs, just due to, you've seen it throughout the years. Josh Allen's not getting any younger. Sean McDermott has been known to be a coach that can have his faults in the playoffs. So what do you think about the Bills and how much pressure there is for them to go deep in the playoffs?
I think there's a lot. I mean, it's a tough road. Probably going to have to play Lamar Jackson and the Chiefs at home, and then going to have to most likely go to Kansas City and play the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And Josh Allen's kind of getting to that point. What is it, his 7th year now, where it's like you've come close. You haven't been over the hump. You've only been to one AFC Championship game, and that was your 3rd year in the league. I know there's some games where it wasn't necessarily his fault, but I think there's a lot of pressure on this whole Bills team because if not now, kind of when starts to be the thing and kind of gets to the point where, can this team ever do it? Can Josh Allen ever do it? And he's not young enough anymore that, they kind of give the benefit of the doubt. So I don't know if there's pressure necessarily internally because I think this team does a good job of keeping that outside. But as far as the media goes, which he really cares what they say. But yeah, if the Bills get bounced early, like it's definitely not going to be a pleasant offseason in Buffalo, and it's not going to be fun to listen to any football talk shows or any football shows or anything like that. So yeah, I think this is probably the most pressure they've had on them going into a playoffs for sure.
Yeah, especially for, I think, a guy like Sean McDermott, because there's the talk of Joe Brady could be leaving this offseason, could be getting a head coaching job. If you lose early in this playoffs, now you're, again, like you said, you're bounced going into then Josh's 8th season. You've only made one AFC championship game. And we know the AFC is a tough conference, but at the end of the day, you have a superstar quarterback who is without a doubt top 3 in the league. I think me and you would agree top 2, especially somebody that you could argue is the number 1 quarterback skill-wise in this league. So for the Bills, I think, you have to look at it as, you've had the talent. And then I think for Sean McDermott, that becomes the big question, especially if you lose to a team like Denver, and then if you even win against Denver and then lose the next week to Baltimore, who a team that you got blown out earlier in the year by. And if you can't beat them 1 out of 2 times in a year, it's going to impose questions here. So I do think the Bills have a lot of pressure here. What do you think, though, about this playoffs and what it means for Josh Allen's legacy? And is there more pressure on him or the Bills to kind of go far in this playoffs?
I'd say it kind of goes hand in hand, to be honest with you. Like, the team goes as far as the quarterback takes them, especially on a team like the Bills. Like, if Josh Allen comes out and has a bad game, the Bills will lose. Their defense is fine. They can run the ball well. But if Josh Allen plays bad, the Bills will lose. So I think it goes hand in hand. There's a lot of pressure on Josh Allen because there's a lot of pressure on the Bills. And there's a lot of pressure on the Bills because there's a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. So definitely big for his legacy. Definitely big for all the Twitter people out there in the Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson streets, because they're probably going to play in the next round. And I know everybody gets sick of that. And if they lose that game, there's going to be a lot more of that. So, but I think, like I said, I think the Bills and Josh Allen are good at handling the pressure. They're not new to this, so I don't think the pressure is going to get to them. But there definitely is a lot of pressure from the outside for them to have a good run here. At least, if they can get to the AFC Championship game, something to build off for next year. Super Bowl, obviously, is very, very possible with this team, but I think they need to go on a little bit of a run at a minimum just to, have some momentum going forward.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where before the season, if you would have said, "Oh, this is a huge pressure for the Bills in the playoffs here," I think some people might have said, well, it's the rebuilding year. This team, again, they quickly got rid of that narrative and quickly got rid of that notion of this is a rebuilding year, because this team is fully prepared to see the AFC. So yeah, for Josh Allen especially, I would lean that it's a little bit more pressure for Josh Allen just because of how the media treats, I think, that whole conversation of Josh and Lamar and how they all shape up with Burrow and Mahomes. But either way, it's a lot of pressure here. As Charlie said, Dan Marino only played in 2 AFC Championships games in his career. We don't want to be a Dan Marino. You don't want Josh Allen to look back and say, wow, in his whole entire career, we only made 1 or even 2. You want to be able to make multiple, unless you win a Super Bowl. If you win a Super Bowl, then I guess people won't care how many AFC championships you made because you at least won a Super Bowl. But either way, a lot of pressure there for both the Bills and Josh Allen. Let us know who you guys think has the most pressure when it comes to this Bills team. Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, just the team as a whole. Before we move on, though, to the offense, we'll check the injury report. And it's kind of weird looking at an injury report that you don't have to worry about a lot on either side, right? When the Broncos only have 5 guys on their injury report. The only one that says out is Frank Crum with an illness, offensive tackle. The only other one that's questionable is Tyler Batty, who is a backup running back for them. But for the Bills, it's a long list for the injury report, but everybody's full practice except for one guy, and that's Brandon Codrington. So what are your thoughts on the injury report and Codrington being the only one that's really questionable?
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's a nice change of pace from playoffs in the past. Last year, the injury list was just as long, but it was a lot of questionables and a lot of outs and a lot of doubtfuls. And we don't have to call AJ Klein off the couch this playoffs, hopefully, knock on wood. But we're going in as healthy as this team has gone into the playoffs, maybe ever. So that's awesome. And Codrington, if there was one, I'll say starter that you had to be without, he's one that pretty easy to go without. He's a good punt returner, but I think Khalil Shakir was taking some reps back there in practice this week, so I would imagine they put Shakir back there. KJ Hamler, they could elevate him. He has return experience, but I heard he was fumbling a bit in practice, returning some punts, so would rather have Shakir out there. And even if he just fair catches all of them, I do not care. Just don't put the ball on the ground. So awesome that they're healthy. Hope that stays this way for the whole playoffs. And yeah, excited to see what this team can do fully healthy on a playoff run.
Yeah, there's also that talk from some Bills fans saying, "Oh, let's bring up Micah Hyde. He's got punt return ability, and he's in the past." And
let's bring up the guy who hasn't touched the football in a year. Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, it's possible that they could say, "Hey, just go back there and just catch the ball. You don't have to return it. Just fair catch everything." But again, I think they would opt for Shakir or even Hamler or somebody that has maybe a little bit more tread in the past year on their legs and everything. So before we get into the offense here, I just want to bring up this question. Do you think the Bills call anybody up? For John is asking, what do you think?
No, maybe. Like maybe they bring up like a Hamler to have another option as a punt returner. Maybe they bring up a Casey Toohill to get in the rotation on the defensive line. Remember, all the recalls reset to 0. You can call up as many guys as you want, as many times as you want. But if they're healthy, I don't necessarily know who they would rather have in a spot versus a guy on the active roster. So I'm not going to say 100% no, but it's not like, oh, we need to call someone up this week. So maybe someone with return experience like Hamler, but based on what we saw in practice this week, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I think it's pretty straightforward there with, if there is a guy, it's got to be somebody that with the return experience. I don't really see another area that you need. You don't need to call up a receiver for receiving abilities. You don't need to call up anybody for secondary. You don't need to call up anybody for defensive line, since everybody's healthy. So I'll agree with you there. Before we move on to the offense here, I just want to give a quick shout out to our 2 sponsors, Buffalopedia Sports and More. Unfortunately, Lance and I don't actually have any memorabilia from them, at least showing right now. Or Scott and I don't. I just called you Lance. Lance does. If you ever want to look back and see what Lance has, he has got a cool Bills helmet that they gave him, and it's a Built in Buffalo helmet. Go look at our past videos there. You go check them out, but go check them out. They got a bunch of great merchandise and memorabilia there that you can go get. And then also Monster Energy. Shout out to Monster Energy for sponsoring us as well here at Built in Buffalo. If you can, we do appreciate any like, comment, subscription, anything you can, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you are watching or wherever you are just enjoying this, hopefully, just let us know. And we do appreciate any like or comment or, like we said, subscription to anything. So just want to put that out there before we get into the offense. So Scott, take it away.
Yeah, and then speaking of the sponsors, Lance and I will be at the Big Tree Inn on Sunday for the game, just like every other home game. We'll have some free monsters, giving them away. Yeah, come by, hang out with us. We'll have a pretty good sized group. So come by and say hello. So let's talk about the offense, and do so. Got to talk about the Broncos defense. The thing that worries me the most, and I would imagine worries most people enough, is just how good the Broncos defensive line is. They don't necessarily have that one guy who's like, wow, like you have to watch out for him. I guess that'd be Nick Benito, but they're just all so good. They led the NFL in sacks by a pretty large margin. Ben, are you concerned about the Broncos offensive line defensive line? And do you think it's good enough to really wreck this game?
For me, as much as, yes, they have a great defensive line, their quarterback pressure rate is 3rd in the league with 37.4%. Their time to throw is 2.73. But when it comes to a guy like Josh Allen, especially for the Broncos who like to blitz, it's not really a game plan against a guy like Josh Allen that you want to continue with at least heavily, because Josh Allen is, one, great against the blitz, and two, if you're going to put guys on islands, Josh Allen's going to find somebody, especially if it's Khalil Shakir underneath or whoever. So yes, I am worried about this defensive line, but I don't think as much as if I was like a Vikings fan or even a Rams fan, just like with a quarterback that can't move as well, just because Josh Allen, as we know, is arguably the greatest scrambling quarterback of all time, and he thrives under pressure when it comes to just rolling out to his right. So yes, as much as this defensive line does worry me, I'm not shaking in my boots because because of this defensive line, mostly just because we have number 17 back there. So yeah, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, well, you mentioned it. So the thing that I'm obviously, I wouldn't say worried, but they're very good. You have to pay attention. The offensive line is going to have to play well. I'm going to talk about that in my needs to step up segment. But the Broncos' strengths kind of play right into the Bills' strengths. The Broncos led the league in sacks. The Bills led the league in not getting sacked. Josh Allen was the first quarterback in NFL history to have 40-plus touchdowns, 8 or less turnovers, and get sacked 20 or less times. I think the Bills only gave up 14 sacks on the whole season. I know Josh Allen was sacked 14 times. I can't remember if Mitch Trubisky or Mike White got sacked. If they did, I apologize to them and their families. I don't remember. But what the Broncos do well is also what the Bills do well. So Josh Allen's going to get out of the pocket, like you mentioned. The offensive line is really good. I know it doesn't show if you look at the All-Pro voting, but we have one of the best offensive lines in football, and they play together as a unit. And I believe it's the second year in a row that the same offensive line combo has started every game, different people last year versus this year. But that's super impressive, and that cohesiveness really matters, especially when you get into the playoffs. And like you mentioned, if they try to blitz Josh Allen, they're going to have a long day. When you blitz quarterbacks who are good and are smart and have good chemistry with the receivers and know where they're going, they're just going to throw into where the blitz came from and going to get rid of it. So we can't take the Broncos defensive line lightly, and I would imagine they're not going to have no sacks in the game like the Bills offensive line's been giving up over the past month or so. They're going to get home, but I don't foresee them wrecking this game just because it plays right into what the Bills' strength is too, which is their offensive line and Josh Allen's mobility, and it's hard to tackle a guy who's 6'5", 240, or whatever he's listed at. Another big concern on the Broncos defense, Pat Surtain. He's one of those cornerbacks that's probably about as close to a Darrelle Revis type as you have in the NFL these days. You can just put him on one side of the field and say, take it away, and he'll do it. I know with the Bills not necessarily having that one go-to guy, it's not as much of like a, hey, take out a Justin Jefferson or take out a Jamar Chase or more receiver by committee. But how do you think Pat Surtain throws a wrench at what the Bills are trying to do something?
I think it doesn't really necessarily, I don't think, throw a wrench in what they want to do. I think it could be a game, though, where you look at it and you say, Mari Cooper's going to be busy. Not in the way of getting 10 receptions, 8 receptions, 6 receptions, anything like that. He could just run a lot of routes and be that guy that kind of says, hey, I'm going to take Pat Surtain out of the play. I'm going to be the guy that they have to worry about in man coverage. And if they're going to play man, they're going to put most likely Surtain on him. So for me, it's more just, I guess it doesn't put a wrench in their plans. It might just change their plans a little bit. They might lean on the run game a little bit. They might try to get the ball out quicker underneath, right? They might try to get it to, you might see them lean on Shakir, lean on Kincaid this week instead of going outside and taking those shots to Keon downfield and taking them to Amari, especially because you don't want to necessarily completely just not throw the ball at Pat Surtain. You want to do it the least amount of times as you possibly can, but they win if you say, okay, we're not even going to even challenge him once this game, right? Like I said, you don't want to challenge him a lot, but at the end of the day, this pass defense is led by him, and this pass defense, even though they're 19th in yards given up per game in passing, they're number 1 in EPA per pass at minus 18.18 there for EPA per pass. So they are an overall good group. They had a little bit of a skid there when Levi Wallace had to start in place of Riley Moss, where it didn't go well. There's a reason Levi Wallace, as much as he did good things with the Bills, he did not do good things for the Denver Broncos. There's a reason he no longer is on the Denver Broncos. But this defense as a whole, especially in the pass game, and mostly might be also due to the fact that they have a great D-line that helps them out. This pass rush or this pass secondary is not a secondary to really mess around with. You don't want to take a ton of chances when it comes to challenging these guys, especially a guy like Pat Surtain.
Yeah, I definitely think Riley Moss can be exposed if the Bills can kind of get him on an island. The one thing that I think having Surtain does is the Bills like to run a lot of like off balance formations. They'll put like one guy on one side and have that one on one matchup, and then they'll put kind of all four, including with the running back, over on the other side. It makes the defense pick because they're not going to want to just only have one guy on that field because what if you float or on that side of the field? Because what if you flow something over there? Not going to be able to get there. So they're trying to pick on the numbers on that strong side of the formation. Pat Surtain is so good that even if they're outnumbered, he can cover so much ground, and he's so smart that if they play like zone, he can kind of take away multiple guys. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the Bills do formationally because they like to get creative, they like to confuse defenses, but with like Pat Surtain, that kind of takes some of that away because even if they're outnumbered, he's so good that he can make up for that. So be interested to see kind of that cat and mouse game that the Bills and Joe Brady run against this Broncos defense. Kind of been talking about it a little bit, but what is your key to the game on the offense for the Bills?
For me, it's going to be a real simple, and I probably said this a lot of games, but for me, it's just you have to take care of the football. You can't fumble it. You can't throw interceptions. This is the playoffs. Taking care of the football is the number one thing in the playoffs. That's how you lose games quickly, and that's how you let underdogs stay in the game, is if you are continuing to turn the football over. The Bills did a great job this whole season of taking care of the football. I believe they had the least amount of turnovers in the NFL. But again, playoffs is a different animal. You got to be able to stay on that and continue to take care of it. No, honestly, I don't really want to see even any trick plays. I just want to see continue with what you've been doing. Throw in maybe some plays you haven't seen in a few weeks just because I know that they said they were keeping it vanilla kind of the last month. But just continue with what you're doing. Lean on the run game. Take care of the football. Those are going to be my two things. And I think that you get out of there with the win no matter what, as long as you win the turnover battle and don't give them at least more than one turnover in this game.
Yeah, my key to you win the turnover battle 9 times out of 10, you're going to win the football game. Bills showing that going 13-4, led the NFL in turnover differential by a huge margin. So they have to keep that going here into the playoffs. And as cliche as don't turn the ball over, mine is protect Josh Allen. Give him time. They're going to throw some exotic blitzes at you. They're going to try to confuse what they see and make Josh hesitate for that half a second, and that half a second's enough for their D-line to get home. Have to give Josh Allen time to process what he sees against the secondary, and if they can do that and keep him clean, and then Josh Allen can make some plays with his legs as well, I don't think they're going to have any problem at least moving the ball on this Broncos defense.
Do you think, before we get into the step up at MVP, do you think Josh Allen's legs can be a big factor in this game when it comes to just moving the ball downfield?
Like they're a big factor in every game. Like whether he's running for like positive yards or he's just moving in the pocket, rolling out to the right, rolling out to the left. When you have a quarterback that you absolutely do not want to leave. I've seen NFL media people, NFL executives say on podcasts that like the number one, like most dangerous thing in the NFL is Josh Allen rolling out to the right. So yeah, even if he's not necessarily running for positive yards, just the threat of that and how mobile he is behind the line of scrimmage and how strong his arm is to be able to make those off-platform throws. Yeah, like Josh Allen's legs are a huge difference, and they're going to have to be the whole playoffs if they want to go on a
run. Yeah, I agree. I just think this game especially could be one where if he sees a lane, he's going to take off and could end up being a guy that gets between 6 to 10 rushes this game and could end up taking off more than we hope. And usually works out, though. So that at the end of the day, it usually works out as long as he stays healthy. But he's done a good job at learning how to stay healthy when he runs. I mean, he's 6'5", so it's not necessarily the hardest thing compared to a guy like Kyler Murray, who is a little bit smaller and might get hit a little bit harder and a little bit higher. So I just thought I'd ask you that before we go into the next little bit. As Lance pops in here, by the way. Oh,
yeah. So was this Lance Nielsen? Thanks for writing in, dude.
You guys are awesome. Go Bills. Lance, we miss you. We'll see you next week. But
yeah, no parents, no rules tonight.
Yeah, do it. We're gonna have an hour and a half show now.
Well, there's a college football playoff game on, so we're gonna make this quick.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, like we do every week, who needs to step up? Who's gonna be the MVP? I'll let you go first.
For this one, for the offense, just because I have a feeling I know who you're going to say I won't take them, but I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir then. I think Khalil Shakir needs to step up this week. He's going to be a guy, like I said, that I think is going to be heavily leaned on in the passing game. Get him the ball. Let him get 6, 7, 8 yards. Let him use his legs after the catch. We've seen him be able to break big plays. So Khalil Shakir, he's done it a lot this season where he's been able to step up. But I think this playoffs in general, he's going to be a guy that's going to have to be a stud, and I think he will. So I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, and that's a good one. We talked about Surtain. He has only, I think I saw, lined up in the slot 51 times this whole season. He's going to stay on the outside. Khalil Shakir primarily lines up in the slot. He can take advantage of not having to draw the coverage of Pat Surtain, hopefully. My step up, I alluded to it earlier, it's the offensive line. I'm taking all 5 of them and Alec Anderson because he plays there. I'm taking all 6 of them. They have to establish the run. The Broncos' defense is good against the run, but with our offensive line and James Cook and Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, we're going to be able to run the ball. We got to, like I said, keep Josh Allen clean, give him his time, because if Josh Allen has time, there's no defense in the world that could stop him. Maybe not even the 85 Bears if Josh Allen has time. But, yeah, I'm taking the offensive line. Who's your MVP?
Well, before I say my MVP, I do think it's funny here. You got the number 3 EPA rush defense versus the number 2 rush offense in the EPA per play. So it's going to be one of those.
Right. That's what I was saying. It's like all of their strengths match right up with ours.
Oh, yeah. So this is going to be, even though they're a 7 seed, and I know a lot of people, I still think the Bills should win this game pretty easily, but it's a game that you can't sleep on this Broncos team because they will make you pay if you can't get that ahead. As Scott, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but you are frozen right now. But for my MVP of the game, it's a little bit cliche, but I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I just think that with Josh Allen being in the playoffs again, he usually steps it up here. Oh, and Scott's back. There you go. Scott, can you hear me?
I'm back.
Yeah, you froze there for a second, but you're good.
Yeah, I know. I was terrified. It's only the 2 of us. Can't leave you hanging.
I said I know it was cliche though for my MVP, but I'm going Josh Allen. I think, like I said, I think he'll use his legs. I think those will be a big factor in this game. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen for my MVP. He steps it up in the playoffs. He is a phenomenal playoff performer, and I don't think it stops this week against Denver. So I'm going to go with JA17.
I'm going to give you a bit of a outside the box one. I'm going to go Ty Johnson. The Broncos are 31st in EVA against receiving running backs, against running backs catching the ball out of the backfield. Ty Johnson, I would say, is our best receiving back, kind of that third down back. And as the year has gone on, or should be DVOA, as the year has gone on, he's gotten more and more action, like that Lions game. He had over 100 yards receiving. I think this is a big time for Ty Johnson to really have his skill set be shown. So excited to see what he can do against a Broncos defense that's bad against running backs out of the backfield catching the ball. And of our running backs, they can all do it, but he does it at the highest level. So I think Ty Johnson has a good game, maybe even gets into the end zone. I know his odds to usually score a touchdown are usually pretty good. So maybe sprinkle a little bit on that.
Well, Ralph Wilson Sr. in the comments agrees with you. We got with the high Broncos blitz rate, could be a big Ty Johnson game. So I did see John Robert also maybe Ty Johnson here. So Ty Johnson, I think he's a guy that has become kind of a fan favorite, I think, in Buffalo, and one of those guys that I think the Bills fans hope he's back next year, and definitely could be a big one in this game. Before though we move on to the defense, I just want to bring this comment up from John Robert here. Kyle Williams going to be the legend of the game. I know a lot of people have been kind of wondering why hasn't he been back? Why hasn't he not been a legend in the game yet? What are your thoughts then on Kyle Williams being the legend and going to be the one leading? I don't know if they call it leading the charge anymore, but leading the charge for the Bills this week.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I mean, especially for you and I, Kyle Williams was like one of those Bills we watched all growing up, like one of the lone bright spots on some pretty bad teams for a long time. So cool that they can bring him back, get him a part of a big playoff game in Buffalo. Unfortunately, he was never able to play in a playoff game in Buffalo, but cool that they can get him back and get him a part of it. I'm sure he's going to be emotional and going to have a lot of fun. But yeah, excited to see Kyle back.
Yeah, it's also I know some people probably saw the pictures and videos today that came out of him being on the field when the team was doing their walkthrough. I did think it was
looks
funny.
like he can still go out there.
I know, and I did think it was also funny that, like, you look at, some of the players or some of, like, the coaches, they're all bundled up. Like, Bean, I had the winter hat, the big jacket. Kyle Williams just has a sweatshirt, just like a real thin-looking sweatshirt that's just nothing, doesn't care in the world.
The same hoodie I wear, like, almost every show, just the Rhoback one, yeah.
And
those aren't warm.
he looks like he still could go out there and give you a good 60 minutes there. But it's gonna be awesome. I mean, I love that the Bills do that now, and I know it used to be just with the flag above. They didn't used to do like the chanting and everything, but I love it. So I think Kyle Williams coming back is absolutely awesome, and I can't wait to hear the roar when they introduce his name, because I feel like certain players get bigger crowd roars than others. They all usually get big ones, but certain players get bigger ones. This one I think could challenge up there for one of the biggest that we do here.
Yeah, he's going to get a good one for sure.
But it is time to move on to the defense here for the Bills defense. So we'll talk about the Broncos offense. Broncos offense has been a little bit weird this year. Rookie Bo Nix comes in. You have a rookie now in the playoffs. Rookie quarterbacks don't usually fare well in the playoffs. But a lot of talk this week about the Denver Broncos run game. And the Broncos run game had a solid week last week against the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs sat some guys. A lot of guys. But when it comes to their offense here, their run game here for the Broncos is not that great in the NFL when it comes to NFL standards. They're towards the bottom of the league. They're actually towards the middle of the league. They're 16th in yards per game. And then EPA per rush, they're 14th or 19th. Sorry, 19th. So, what do you think about the run game? Can the Bills shut down the run game? It's been a big concern for Bills fans, is the ability to stop the run. So something's got to give. Either the Broncos are going to have a great day on the ground, Bills defense is going to have a great day against the run. Which one's going to give, and how do the Bills make them one-dimensional in that way?
Well, the same thing I say every time I'm worried about stopping the run is you stop the run with your offense. The Bills score points and they get a lead, they can't run the ball. That's how you beat good teams. I'm not putting the Broncos in the same category as like the Lions, the Ravens, the Chiefs, where kind of have to get a lead to slow them down. But yeah, the Broncos, they're just not great at running the ball. They kind of use like the running back by committee. They have Javonte Williams, they have Jaleel McLaughlin, and then Audric Estime, who was the guy that we talked about over the offseason on maybe being a target for the Bills in the draft. But all of them have pretty average numbers. They only have 12 rushing touchdowns as a team, and 4 of those are from Bo Nix. So if they're going to score, it's most likely going to be through the air. I will say I'm a little worried about Bo Nix just with his athletic ability. You mentioned he's a rookie, but he's like 30 years old already for however long he was in college. So he's a little more experienced than some other rookies, and he's played in some big games. He didn't win them, but he played in them. So, worried about him maybe scrambling for some yards, scrambling for some first downs if the Bills D-line doesn't keep their gap integrity. But, yeah, if you can get a lead, make this team one-dimensional, or if the D-line can play well, slow down the run, make them one-dimensional, it's going to be really hard for a rookie quarterback to come into Buffalo and do anything.
Yeah, and, you mentioned Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, to me, is one of the sadder stories in the NFL. He's still obviously in the NFL. He's still a running back that they use in Denver. But man, before that injury that he had early in his career, he was looking like he was on his way just being a star running back in this league. It kind of has the injury, comes back, hasn't really been the same. Estime has slowly, I believe, started to get more carries through the last few weeks of the season. So you could see him in a heavy dose, especially just because of the fact that he is a physical runner, but he also has a tendency to put the ball on the ground. So this could be a game where they look to punch it out with Audric Estime. I said it against the Patriots when the Patriots came to Buffalo. I said that about Stevenson. Stevenson fumbled, so that was great. Hopefully the Bills can do it again here with either Estime or Javonte Williams or whoever else they put back there. But yeah, I think, if you can get the lead, that automatically right there puts the Broncos in a tough position, because it's like, well, you're playing Josh Allen. You can't run the ball and risk going 3 and out. You can't risk not getting ahead of the change here and then putting the Bills defense in a position to be able to get aggressive, being able to put them in position to pretty much do anything they want, and then give the ball back to Josh Allen, who's most likely going to go down and score again. At least this year has been that way. So, yeah, I think you got to make him one-dimensional in that way just by getting out to the lead, like you said. But either way, I do think having Milano and Bernard both healthy is going to be huge there. I think the defensive line has started to play a little bit better overall, and hopefully they can continue that. But, yeah, when it comes to, Bo Nix, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about it in a little bit, but I do agree, though, that's the one aspect that this year, I think he's led them in rushing, I want to say a handful of times, at least 5 or 6 times this year. So he's led them in rushing. He has the ability to run. We know that running quarterbacks don't necessarily fare too well against the Bills. You look at Lamar Jackson when it comes to rushing, he'll get his, but at the end of the day, he's not going to go off for a crazy game. So we'll see how the Bills do. But we just talked about the run game. We'll talk about a little bit about the pass game and kind of just the overall weapons they have on the rest of the offense there. They only really have one guy that stands out a ton. I know they have a young guy in Marvin Mims Jr. there who is a pretty good deep threat. He's a returner as well, a guy who I know a lot of Bills fans wanted as well going into his draft year. But besides that, you got Courtland Sutton's the only real bigger name on this offense, and he's had a phenomenal year. I think everybody's waiting for a year like this for him for a while. So what do you think about this offense and the weapons they have outside of Courtland Sutton? Is there anybody really to be worried about?
Yeah, Marvin Mims would be the guy I'd pick. He is just a rookie, second-round pick last year at Oklahoma, but he started off really slow. He didn't really do anything in the first half of the season, but down the stretch, he's really come on. He's been hot. Over the last 5 games, he's averaged almost 70 yards a game, had a couple over 100, had that crazy jump ball catch in the Cincinnati game that a lot of people probably watched on Christmas week, and that game was awesome to watch, and he made the play that kind of kept that thing going. He had 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. He had 2 touchdowns against the Bengals. So he's a guy who's playing with a lot of confidence. Him and Bo Nix are starting to build that connection. And like you mentioned, Courtland Sutton's going to get his. It's just a matter of slowing down everybody else around him and making him the only guy, and then you can kind of try to take that away. But yeah, Marvin Mims is the guy who's been red hot recently, and if there wasn't a number 2 option I'd be worried about, it'd be him. And you mentioned the deep threat, and the Bills generally don't give up a lot of big plays, but I'm sure they're going to take a shot or two because as a big underdog on the road, they're going to have to, and he's probably the guy who's going to get the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big game for the safeties here to be able to say, "Hey, we're not gonna pinch up and let a big play happen," because again, if big plays happen, momentum can switch like that. One play can get a team going, especially if it's a close game late or anything. So yeah, Marvin Mims Jr. is a guy who, even on special teams, I think is a guy that you have to worry about because he has that home run ability, even as a punt returner. So yeah, Marvin Mims Jr., he's the one guy. I mean, Adam Troutman is their starting tight end. Again, he's serviceable, I guess. He's a serviceable tight end, but he's not exactly.
He's a tight end.
Yeah, he's a tight end. He's not somebody you're going to look at and be like, oh, we're going to have to really watch for that guy. And then other than that, I mean, they have Devon Vele, who has made some plays this year, but a lot of his plays, again, he had that one play, I believe it was against the Chiefs last week, where it was a crazy tip drill, and he ended up diving for it. But other than that, he's had an all-right year. I know he had a couple games with double-digit targets, and he got up there a couple games, but at the end of the day, he's not a guy who week in, week out is going to get 8 targets, 10 targets a game. So they don't really have too much. I would say I'm more worried about that 3-headed monster in the backfield. Monster, if you want to call it. Quotations around that, heavy quotations around that. But I'm more worried about those 3 than I am, I think, the receiving core for this Broncos team. So let us know who you guys think is the number 1 guy on this Broncos team, if it is Sutton, or if there's a sneaky guy that you think the Bills should really worry about there on defense. We did just talk about him a little bit, but I want to get a little bit more in-depth. Bo Nix, we talked about he's your rookie, but he's not your average rookie. Again, due to the age, he's played a lot of college football. He's played a lot of football in his day before getting to the Broncos. He can do it with both his arms and his legs. He's shown it this year. He surprised a lot of people. I think a lot of people laughed at the Broncos for picking him to where he did, and he has shown that, hey, the Broncos, at least for this year, had gotten a good rookie. So what do you think about Bo Nix? And despite being a rookie, do you think he's still a big threat to this defense?
Yeah, absolutely. He's played really well, especially down the stretch. I know that they kind of got cold, lost a couple close ones there, but he had really good numbers for rookie. 29 touchdowns, 12 picks. Through 2 weeks of the season, he had 0 touchdowns, 4 picks. So through the last 15 games, 29-8, which is really solid. And then he had 3 against the Colts in the game that they won by a lot. So kind of a weird one. He's taking care of the football pretty well for a rookie. So I know he is a rookie, and rookie quarterbacks generally don't fare well in the NFL and generally don't fare well against McDermott. I think I saw McDermott's like 9-4 against rookie quarterbacks, and one of the losses was Josh's rookie year, and the other one was on Sunday, which doesn't really count. The stat I am concerned about now that I'm thinking about it, Sean Payton against bald coaches. I think he's like 29-12. We might have to get McDermott on a flight to Turkey overnight and get him back here so he can take care of that. But, yeah, no, Bo Nix is good. He's athletic. Sean Payton, a great offensive mind of a coach. He's going to scheme up some things to get guys open. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out early and take a shot, run a trick play, kind of like that Bills-Texans playoff game in Josh's second year when they came out and they ran the QB sweep for 40 yards. Then they ran the trick play where John Brown threw it to Josh Allen. Would not surprise me if they run something like that, because on the road, as a big underdog with a rookie quarterback, you're going to have to steal some points. And if there's anybody who can do that, it's Sean Payton. Luckily for us, they can't surprise onside kick anymore. They took that out of the rules. But yeah, Bo Nix has looked good. I'm sure he's going to make a couple rookie plays on Sunday, but he's also going to make some other plays. And you're like, wow, this guy's good. And the Broncos definitely have their quarterback for the future.
Yeah, I think you talked about Bo Nix. He's probably going to make some of those rookie plays. Those are the plays I think the Bills defense they're going to have to take care of. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for here, but they're going to have to
take advantage of them.
Take advantage, as I can't think of that for some reason. They're going to have to take advantage of those mistakes. You can't let them float by. You can't drop interceptions. You cannot let him get away with those. That's the only way I think that this rookie quarterback has a chance, is if you let him get away with those mistakes. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy who I laughed at the pick when they took him. I mean, also because being a partly Auburn fan, as much as I know you hate that I'm a two college football guy. With Bo Nix there, he was there before he was at Oregon. Didn't exactly turn out well, so I did also laugh at the pick because of that. But hey, he's proved a lot of people wrong, and he's a guy who I think is going to go into this game saying, hey, I got nothing to lose. I have absolutely nothing to lose. I'm going to go out there and see what I can do. And yeah, he's going to take some chances, but at those chances and those mistakes, you're going to have to take advantage of them as the Bills defense there. So I'm excited to see what they have planned against Bo Nix and see how even Sean Payton plans it for a rookie quarterback. We've seen Sean Payton coach a million games, but I can't remember the last time he's had a rookie quarterback under him. It might have been right before he left New Orleans, but at the end of the day, he hasn't had a rookie quarterback in the playoffs maybe ever. So we'll see what type of game plan that he comes up with for there and see what goes on.
Fun fact, before we move on, I saw Bo Nix play on Auburn in the game against Penn State. I saw Bo Nix play when he was on Oregon. Pac-12 championship, they lost to Washington. So now I'll see him play on the Broncos, like the Bo Nix trifecta. Just can't get away from mediocre quarterback play.
Did he win when he was at Auburn?
Didn't win any of them.
So hopefully that trend continues this weekend.
Yeah, I was the Penn State whiteout game in 2021, and every Auburn fan I saw, I apologized. So they had to watch Bo Nix play quarterback. He was that bad.
Yeah, no, Auburn fans were not exactly in love with Bo Nix when he was here or there. So yeah, we'll see what happens though. Hopefully,
that first game against Oregon was cool. He threw the ball so bad it worked, and they beat Oregon.
Hey, if they do end up if the Bills do end up winning, I think you got to message Bo Nix and just be like, hey man, I've seen you play 3 times. You've lost all 3 times. What's that about? And then just see what he says.
And ask him how much he'll pay me to never go to one of his games again.
Yeah, exactly. And then see, there you go. Boom, you're rich. You take half his contract. But yeah, Bo Nix, though, we'll see what happens, though. It is time, though. What is the key to the game we did this for their offense. What's the key to the game for the defense? What do you got?
I would say contain Courtland Sutton. We mentioned it. He's really the only guy that can kind of take over a game by himself. The Bills' secondary, while it has been questionable at times, the cornerbacks are both really good in Benford and Rasul Douglas. Both starting safeties are back. I know they were there last year, last week. But for the first time in a while, we're going to have the whole secondary healthy. So if they can just contain Courtland Sutton, take that away, make Bo Nix have to beat you, go into other guys who maybe he's not as comfortable with, who aren't as good, I think they're going to slow down the running game. So make them one-dimensional and make that one dimension not Courtland Sutton. I think whoever they're playing, the Broncos, are going to have a very long day.
Yeah, I'm going to go with I think you just got to be disciplined. And that when it comes to gap integrity, that also becomes to penalties. You cannot give them free plays. You cannot give them free first downs. And even if it's 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, and they're trying to draw offsides, you got to be disciplined there. You have to be a disciplined football team. And if you're going to give them free yards, they're probably going to take advantage of it in the playoffs. It's the playoffs. You got to be a team that you have to take care of yourself and how you're playing. And that comes to pass interference, hands in the face, whatever it is. There's got to be discipline there. And then also, like we said, the gap integrity that you mentioned when it comes to just containing Bo Nix. So I think just discipline is going to be the number one thing for the defense. Just don't give them anything for free. So that'll be my key to the game. Let us know what you guys think. What's the number one thing the Buffalo Bills defense has to do to stop this Denver Broncos offense? And it is, as we say we always do, with offense and defense, step up, MVP. Who do you got for step up?
Mine is Ed Oliver, and it's not just necessarily this game. It's this whole playoff run. This defense kind of goes as he goes. When he's getting pressures on the quarterback, when he's stuffing runs, when he is playing his best, this defense can be scary. This season hasn't necessarily been his best, and as such, the defense hasn't been as good. We need Ed Oliver to bring his A game in every game in this playoffs if they're going to go on a run. He's kind of, like I said, kind of the heartbeat of that defense from the D-line. He can be a game wrecker. He has the potential to do it. So we need Ed Oliver to come out and get some confidence going and have a big game, and which leads to a big run.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I think Taylor Rapp's gotta step up this game. He's gotta have a good game. He's gotta be involved pretty much everywhere. I think run game, pass game. I think he's just gotta overall be that leader in the secondary. I know you have Rasul Douglas, who is a seasoned vet. Benford, who's slowly getting there when it comes to becoming that leader. But at the end of the day, you still have guys who are not exactly experienced when it comes to starting in the playoffs for in the NFL. Damar Hamlin, not experienced when it comes to starting in the playoffs. Even Christian Benford, like I just mentioned, hasn't had too many starts in the playoffs under his belt. So when it comes to the secondary, I think Taylor Rapp's going to have to lead the way. I guess you could throw Rasul Douglas in there, just those two veterans leading the way for the secondary. So I'll go with those two for need to step up. Also, before we get into the MVP here, Christopher said forced turnovers for the key to the game for the defense there. That is another one. Look, they've done it all year. I know
that's
that
a good one.
We were talking in the Built Buffalo chat a little bit about that, about how the Bills defense, they rely on forcing turnovers, but that's kind of a staple of this defense, right? It's that they get the ball, they know how to get it back to their offense and give good field position. So yeah, that's a good one there from Christopher for forced turnovers. But what do you got though for your MVP?
I'm going to go with Terrell Bernard just because I think he's going to have a good game. I think the D-line is going to play well. I think Terrell Bernard is going to be able to make a lot of tackles in the run game. They're going to try to run the ball. Hopefully they're not able to because we get a lead or we stop it. But they're not going to be able to pass the ball the whole game on the road in a playoff game. As an underdog, they're going to have to establish the run, and that leads to Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano making a lot of tackles, not letting runs get through the second level. And then also in the passing game, if they try to take away Cortland Sutton on the outside, they try to do some stuff in the middle. Terrell Bernard's great in coverage. So I think Terrell Bernard is going to be the MVP. I think he has a big game. Maybe even he has an interception. Maybe we'll get nuts.
Well, I was going to do Bernard, but I will go with Teron Johnson. A guy that we mentioned earlier in the show or in the beginning of the show that he last year was an All-Pro. He's a guy that definitely could be worthy of an All-Pro this year. But he's a phenomenal player, and I think he's a guy that could end up, especially if the Bills do end up getting some pressure this game, I do think that he could end up being a guy that has to make some plays in both the run game and the pass game. So I'm going to go with Teron Johnson. John's going Greg Rousseau. I almost went with Rousseau. Teron Johnson there for Christopher as well. Look, I just think there's so many guys you could go with that could be the MVP and needs to step up in this game. But I think it's going to be the guys that you expect to step up that need to be the guys that are going to be MVPs in this game. The Terrell Bernards, even the Matt Milanos, right? The Teron Johnson, the guys that have proven it time after time. So, yeah, let us know who you guys think, though. We obviously got some people leaving there in the comments there. And before we do our parlay, I just want to say, if you can subscribe, everything again, just a shout out to our sponsors as well, Buffalo Billiard Sports and more. But we're going to also, before we leave here, do our triple coverage parlay. Lance is obviously not here this week. He did pick the Washington Commanders +3. That's going to be Lance's pick. Scott, you got Steelers +9.5. What do you think about that one?
I think it's a divisional game, and I think Mike Tomlin. No one slows down Lamar like Mike Tomlin. I don't know if the Steelers win, but I think it's closer than 9.5.
Yeah, and no Zay Flowers, so that will be big for the Baltimore Ravens as well. I went with the Chargers, as this says Chargers, but obviously it's the Chargers. Chargers -2.5. I just think the Chargers are a better football team than Houston. period. I just think they are a better football team than them, and I think Houston shouldn't even be a playoff team, but they squeaked in because they started off well. So I'm going to go with the Chargers there. I think John Harbaugh is going to have them, or Jim Harbaugh is going to have them ready to go there, and yeah, we'll see what happens though. Again, bet responsibly. We are not responsible if you bet them and lose, because we also bet them and lose if we lose. So
we are responsible if you bet them and win.
Yeah, we are. So bet responsibly, and yeah, but that is going to do it for us. You got any last words before we hop off here?
No, just hopefully we're back here next Friday talking about another game.
Yeah, we're not going to do any predictions this week. I'm not a big prediction person for the playoffs when it comes to score. You'll see ours on Sunday when they post it. But hope everybody has a great weekend. Hope everybody enjoys this football this weekend. And yeah, it should be a great weekend. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.